Welcome to our brand new podcast, Extra Time with Girls on the Ball, or ET with GOTB, if you're an acronym fan. We got some pretty good feedback from the World Cup from G'day with GOTB, so we decided to try and replicate that throughout the season. What can people expect, Soph?
20 minutes of match day insight.
Yes, short, sharp. You're not reading the brief, Soph.
I'm not reading the script.
I've just brought you here for the insight, and I'm going to do all the detail. Is that what's happening? Right.
That's your job as host.
This is going to be your kind of Monday evening, quick recap, all things going on, what you might have missed. If you've not managed to catch up on all the goals and the scores and the goal scores and the standings, and then this is the place to be. And if you're lucky, we might take you on the road with us at times as well, and maybe chat to a few familiar faces. I'm Rachel.
I'm Sophie.
And this is Extra Time with Girls on the Ball. Right, so in case you were living under a rock, WSL did obviously return.
First of all, do you want to talk about your shrine that you've made in the background?
Oh, go on. Well, this is a podcast first and foremost, so I'm going to have to describe it now in great detail. Right, I said to Sophie that I feel like this series, it's going to be a bit like watching your Simpsons or your Family Guy, right? From way back at the beginning when they were kind of fuzzy blobs, and then like as things got better, the characters improved and got sharper.
Fuzzy blobs right now.
So right now we are in a fuzzy blob room, okay? And I've made like a little bit of a shrine behind us. And what you can see is me trying to drape shirts and various merchandise that we've gathered over the years on some boxes, because we've not quite managed to turn this into the football museum that we'd hoped for.
How long have we been talking about doing this, Rach?
We've lived here since 2014. So
as you can see, we've got very, very far.
Listen, if you could see, let me just swivel this camera around. Sorry for those of you listening, but swiveling the camera around, there is a lot of stuff there. There's a lot of bits and pieces that we have collected over the years, and we basically need to get shirts on walls. We need to like all that kind of stuff. So as this season goes on, that is going to look amazing. It's going to be so good. Okay?
But yes, this has basically been our stuff room for the last however many years, and Rachel, when we got back from Ireland the other day, very, very keenly came in to finally tidy it all up. So
it's not even that tidy.
Pretty good job.
But it looks pretty good from what you can see. So for those of you listening, you can pop onto YouTube and you can have a look at our fuzzy background, which is going to become the super sharp, 21st century by the end of this podcast, I hope. That's our deadline anyway. Anyway, Sophie, the football. It's meant to be short and sharp, and I've just spent most of this pod nearly talking about the background. We did have the WSL come back. We just about got our breath back after the international window that came around super quickly. And, we had 6 games, 18 goals, 3 main stadia, which is very exciting, 2 red cards, and an upset. So, all in all, pretty good week.
Especially 2 red cards, that's very unusual. I can say it properly. Very unusual for women's football is to have 2 straight reds as well, not 2 yellows, like double yellows or whatever. It was 2 red cards.
Well, let's get at it. So we had Villa losing 1-2 to Man United at Villa Park. We had Brighton beating Everton 2-1 as well. We had Liverpool with the upset of the weekend beating Arsenal in front of a record crowd as well. 1-0. Full of goals here, Leicester and Bristol, 4-2 to Leicester. Man City beating West Ham 2-0 and Chelsea beating Spurs 2-1. So we're going to start with the games that we did cover. You were at Arsenal-Liverpool, record crowd at the Emirates. Talk to us. What was your take on the match?
I think Liverpool did really well. They set up really well. I think Matt Beard's done a lot of work with them. You could see it over pre-season. They've had a pretty tough pre-season. He said to me post-match, he was like, their aim with pre-season this year was to play really tough teams and get themselves prepared, and they've done that. And you could see they were really well drilled against Arsenal. They were defensively compact. They played with 3 at the back, and they really exploited the pace, like the space in the transition. They got their goal just after half-time, Mary Taylor, and it really came from just disrupting Arsenal going forward and Arsenal's press, and they found the spaces and made it count, and they just needed that one chance. Rachel Laws is brilliant in goal. She made 3 big stops in the first half and I think 1 in the second to deny Arsenal when they did get through. So yeah, it was a pretty good performance from Liverpool. It's the second time in a row that they've disrupted, the top teams on the first day of the season. They're pretty good at it. They were very happy. Obviously, they had a little section of support in the far corner. Very, very noisy. Mary Taylor ran over there when she scored, and she said she was obviously delighted when I spoke to her after the game as well. She said it was what dreams were made of as a young footballer. You to play in a stadium like that and to score with your fans watching was pretty cool.
Love that. Looking at it then from an Arsenal perspective, obviously they got knocked out of the Champions League very early. They won't be competing in it this year, and I think there's a lot of expectation on them this season to deliver. They'll have they won't be having, touch wood, the injury crisis that they did last season. They've definitely got depth. They've got those players coming back, and obviously not the perfect start for them. What happened?
They weren't clinical. They became too predictable. In the first 20 minutes, they did have joy, but they were being forced out wide a lot. So a lot of their chances were coming from deliveries from the flanks, and relying on someone in the box to rise to meet the ball. They were not really able to play their intricate football that we so often see through the middle. Liverpool did a pretty good job at stamping that out. And then they kind of just ran out of ideas, I think. Everything lost its potency. I mean, even like they had something like 19 corners. And, they hired a set-piece coach last year, but it wasn't really looking at any point like they were going to get their way through.
Do you know who's good at scoring goals is from corners is Amanda Ilstead. Where was she?
She was on the bench. I think there was a lot of management going on with the players as well.
I'm sure, but if you're looking at that many corners going in and nobody meeting them, do you not look to try and make those changes?
He was also time managing the players. I think that has been the problem for Arsenal, is that a lot of them were on international camp last week as well. So I think that has been a problem. It's not an excuse, but he's probably had a week with them this pre-season, and it will take time. He said they will find that clinical edge. Those relationships will build. He was obviously very disappointed post-match, but he was saying he didn't sound too worried in the sense that there was something drastically wrong. He was like, it's just this time of year, and kind of waiting for those relationships to build a bit. Okay,
he did ask that fans give them more chances. Now, a team who are no stranger to losing to Liverpool on opening day, but went on to win the league, is Chelsea Spurs. And then you raced across London. I was already there, but you raced across London on a very hot tube to make this derby at Stamford Bridge. Speaking of rested players, Sam Kerr was on the bench, and we got to see Mia Fishel.
She wasn't on the pitch at all.
No, sorry, she wasn't on the bench. No. Sam Kerr wasn't there at all. I saw her, that's probably why.
She was wandering
I was watching her in front of me. But we got to see Mia Fishel, and a dream debut for her.
Yeah, Chelsea's new signing, and Emma Hayes has been very, I think I described it as pragmatic in the way that she's brought people in over the summer. Relatively little turnover compared to everyone else. Yes, there's been a few new signings, but I think that's more for the future, as I've said before. But yeah, Mia Fishel, she dream start, right? She looked really, really bright early on, and she was just in the right, she picked the right moment to rise and head that delivery from Niamh Charles home with pretty much nothing Becky Spencer could do about it. Could have been a bit tighter to her, I think, the defender, but it was a dream start. She ran away celebrating. I think she's a childhood Chelsea fan, if I'm not wrong. That. So that was a pretty special moment for her.
And then we had a peak LJ goal as well. Talk us through that.
Yeah, well, the officials will be mightily relieved that she did score, because literally in the phase of play beforehand, I think it was Guru Wrighton who had a shot on goal. It clearly went over the line. Ashley Neville scrambled it away, and the assistant didn't give it. And then they recycled the ball, came straight back, and it was a peak. Yeah, LJ volley, call as you like. Just the technical ability was spot on to do that. And it came from Chelsea's left again, which was the key to their success most of the evening. That link up between Charles and Wrighton down that left side. I know Angora James switched into the midfield late in the second half, but she was at the right back, and she's not right back. And I think that's why they were pinpointing her, because while she's a great player, it's not her natural position.
Yeah. We did see a different Spurs, I think, is fair to say. They're more attacking with Marta Thomas. She was getting opportunities. I think she's maybe not as sharp yet as she will be. But there was some nice link of play between her and Bizet, looked good as well. What did you make of Spurs?
I think you have to remember with Thomas is that she came in one of the really late signings on deadline day. Robert Wilhelm said that she had one pre-season match with the team and then went off on international camp. So she's not had a lot of time to get those relationships going, and she did look bright. He was really pleased with this side, I think, and the tenacity that they showed to stay in the game, get that goal back. Yes, at times they were outplayed by Chelsea. I think everyone expected that to happen. But he said that he was really pleased with their energy and sort of aggressiveness in the press and going forward and not giving up and trying to, keeping going and trying to get those efforts on goal. And I think immediately after Thomas got that one back, Jess Naz came really close as well, so they definitely didn't let their foot off the gas.
Yeah, Thomas did eventually get a goal. Musovic, uncharacteristic spill from her. She'd saved it initially, but kind of parried off her, and Thomas was there to bundle it home. So yeah, like at one point, like all of Spurs were in Chelsea's half, which you're just not really used to seeing from a Spurs team. So already kind of exciting signs there, and I'm sure, as you said, once those connections start to build, we might see something good, an actual like visible style of play from Spurs.
I think Emma Hayes summed it up really well. She would basically say it's the first game of the season. There were basically good moments, horrible moments, and moments you could be quite happy with and quite unhappy with, and there will be a lot of improvement to be done over the next few weeks, but it was just kind of reflecting where they were at in this season. Yeah,
and in what will be news to nobody, Chelsea really do look absolutely stacked. Also thoughts with Emma Hayes. Of course, she did lose her father earlier on this week, and there was quite a touching moment at the end of the match when the team presented her with a shirt. So that was quite touching. Elsewhere, then what kicked off the WSL was Aston Villa, Man United at Villa Park. This was always going to be a bit of a spicy fixture. And I managed to watch bits of it during our preparation. You watched little bits of it. We had it on the TV there this morning to watch it back. United probably dominated possession, like it was 57%, I think it was. Definitely dominated the chances. They created 25 to Villa's 9, but they only had 8 on target. So, something, I guess, that conversion they'll need to work on. But a couple of newbies looking good. Van Domselaar made some really good saves.
It's stunning, isn't she? She's just such a good keeper.
I just had a moment where she made that parry around the post right early on, and I was like, oh, I'm so glad she's in the WSL.
Maybe it was in the second half, just this instinctive punch out that just turned a header away from goal that was definitely destined for the back of the net. It was, a really good sign for a keeper in her first game in a new league as well.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us expected anything different, but it's still
great to see
performances.
Yeah. Another newbie who looks very exciting for United is JC, and she is looking already sharp in her first match and frightening, and she had chances, so I cannot wait to see what she can do this season. I bet United fans are very excited after seeing her performance yesterday.
Yeah, I think so. She was just lively. It's what you want. Yes, she didn't get her goal, but she was doing everything but, I think, and that will come with time, in terms of her ability to, as we've said before, it's all about relationships in football, and it's getting on a par with your teammates and really understanding whereabouts they're going to be and where you need to be as well, and reading those spaces, so it will come.
Yeah, she looked very exciting. A couple of maybe contentious moments, I don't know whether they're contentious moments, but Carla Ward was pretty vocal in how she felt about how the game was managed. She kind of basically said, look, I'm never going to directly blame the referees. They need to be made full-time so that they can be giving it their absolute best, which, we've said it in many different fora. We have similar feelings. We think the refs should get to be full-time. But we had a Maya Letizier body check on Ebony Salmon. It was outside the box, but it was blatant free. She got lucky there. And Hansen's red card as well. I don't think that was too contentious. I think that was just unlucky. But she did come out and apologise.
It's this new thing with footballers, right? That whenever they get sent off, they have to apologise about either not wanting to hurt the opponent or just apologise to their own fans,
letting the team down,
a red card and letting the team down. And you could it's different if someone goes in full-blooded 2-footed challenge with your feet off the ground, and it's a really dangerous act. She obviously had no intention of hurting Hayley Ladd on the other end of it. It was a mistake. It was a red card. It was a high foot, but that's it. It was nothing more than that. And the fact that she feels that she needs to come out and make an apology, I just don't really understand why that needs to be done these days. It's a bit mad.
You've nothing to apologise for, Kirsty. Can we expect to see United to use their depth a bit more this year? I mean, that's something I think people have called for Mark Skinner to do more often, and I guess now, particularly if they manage to get to the group stages of the Champions League, it's going to have to, and Mark Skinner has said they've recruited for that. But we saw Paris and Williams come off the bench, and those two doing exactly what was needed, combining for that winning goal. Rachel Williams doing what Rachel Williams does.
I mean, she's inevitable. She really is. And probably you talk about all of the glittery Man United signings, but actually maybe we should not be looking anywhere further than Rachel Williams to come off the bench and do what she does, because she's done it all last season. She's doing it this season already. But yeah, I think they have to, especially this month. Whatever happens in the Champions League, you've now got Arsenal on Friday, then PSG, Leicester, PSG. So he's going to have to utilise that squad, and players are already tired. We've already talked about this so much. So he's going to have to rest and rotate and see how he can manage that properly. And it's going to be interesting to see, because as he has said himself, he didn't do it last year. He didn't have to rotate because they played one game a week. He now has to. Yeah, well, I'm going to do a bit of digging because I want to see Rachel Williams' minutes to goal ratio, because I think it's going to be pretty good. Elsewhere, Brighton beat Everton 2-1, Turlin bagging both. I'm very glad that I put her in my fantasy team. If you're not already part of our league on She Plays, our code is GOTB, so make sure you join. But I had her as my vice captain, so I'm chuffed with that. But they took an early lead, 2-up in 14 minutes. And then new captain Megan Finnegan getting a consolation for Everton in the 65th. We said we were excited about Brighton. They did sit off, I think, a bit in the second half, and Everton are probably unlucky. They dominated, I think, in the second half, and probably unlucky not to have gotten another couple of goals. But, I think, again, with Brighton, I wouldn't be too worried by that. I think it was Mark Skinner, actually, in pre-match, who said he expected the last, half an hour, 20 minutes of all games to sort of drift off a bit, and if they put a lot into the first half, then they probably lost a bit of that oomph in the second. It's been it has been a tough time. They've also amassed a squad that's really new. So I wouldn't, if I was a Brighton fan, I wouldn't be too worried by that. They've obviously got quality. They've got a quality manager. We really like her in terms of what she's able to do on the pitch. I've only heard good things about her in terms of her management. So I wouldn't be too worried about that. I think Everton showing some fight and getting back into the game is also positive for them, because we've all been a little bit worried about where they are at and whether they have the depth necessary to cover for them. But yeah, they came back into it, so that must be really positive.
They had chances, for sure. It's just the defending was poor for both of the goals, and that was the area we were kind of worried about. But I'm sure they'll learn plenty from it. Then there were goals galore between Bristol and Leicester, with the Foxes running out 4-2 winners on the Vixens. Love that, Foxes and Vixens. What a great little tasty fixture. Carrie Jones got the first one for Bristol. Wicked deflection, but you've rated Jones for a long time. And in a weird twist, Amy Palmer got the first for Leicester, and both Jones played for Leicester last season and Palmer played for Bristol last season.
Yeah, football does these weird things sometimes, and it was strange. Amy Palmer's goal was brilliant though.
Yeah,
strike,
brilliant, and she scored right at the death of the first half, and then O'Brien came and scored early in the second. They're the perfect times to score. What a 1-2 punch, I think, for teams to concede right at the end of the first and right at the beginning of the second.
Really pleased for Shannon as well, because she spent the best part of last season injured. She's back to full fitness now, and to be able to get a score in your first game as well, back after that, is a good way to get things started, I think. Yeah,
and then we had Peterman and Rentala both scoring on their debuts for Leicester to make it 4, and then a penalty for Teistrup, but that was more of a consolation. It was 4-2 in the end. So these games are going to be important, these particular ones, because I think there's going to be a lot of teams pulled into that relegation battle over the course of the season, and I think we'll talk about it just before we finish, about the fixtures coming up, and there are a lot of those fixtures coming up where those points are going to be very, very important, and it could come down to goal difference. Finally, then we had West Ham 0, Man City 2. Another newbie with a dream debut, or a second WSL debut, Jill Roord. Sounded like she had a good game as well and probably deserved that goal. And then she came in following up after Lauren Hemp scored a lovely curler. I was quite impressed that West Ham held City off for so long.
Yeah, I watched about 2/3 of the game this morning, and they had ideas. I think the problem is that they're still moving on from last year, where they would expect Dagny to be in the box, and obviously Dagny's out. She's pregnant this season, so she's not going to be there. So sometimes they were like sending in these crosses, and they just did not have the height in the area. Like they were just I think Lisa Evans at the time was just hoping Dagny would appear in the middle, and they just wasn't there. So they're going to have the time to readjust to that, but they did look positive in spells. City did dominate the possession though, and they did
massively.
They were deserved of the win.
Yeah, I think West Ham only created one chance, which I think is going to be, as you say, a bit of a worry. One chance on target, and there was, of course, another red card in this game as well. Uhabi being sent off for taking down Harries with a trailing leg. And I think she was a little bit unlucky. I think the way she fell, her legs were literally flailing all over the place. She caught Harries, and the ref took an age to make a decision. I think maybe it was the fourth official or the liner or someone who kind of said to her it's a red card. So
I wasn't too when I saw it first time, I was like, that's not right. It was a trip.
Yeah, her legs were kind of, they're in no control of it, if you know what I mean.
I don't know what will happen, but I wouldn't be surprised if Manchester City try and appeal that, because I'm not sure it's a straight red.
Right, well, you'll heard it here first. So that means currently, thanks to goal difference and the alphabet, Leicester are top of the table with Man City and Brighton in second and third. So stop the count, I say. That could, of course, all change.
I did love it in a pre-match show that both Willie Kirk and Melissa Phillips, I think, they both joked about having the chance to be on 0 points alongside everyone else. So for them both to get 3 points in the first game of the season,
yes,
is a massive one for them.
Yes, I love that. So next week we've got United taking on Arsenal on Friday night. I can't wait for that long drive up to LSV on a Friday. We will also be covering between us Brighton and West Ham and Spurs versus Bristol. So they're those games. I think they're such exciting games at the top. That what was the top last season and what was kind of down the bottom last season, and it could be totally different now this season, which is super exciting. Other fixtures then: Man City versus Chelsea. That's tasty. Leicester versus Everton and Liverpool versus Villa. So that is what is to come. So let's see what the table looks like next week. Speaking of tables that are impossible to predict, the Championship is continuing to be one of the most exciting leagues out there.
Mayhem.
Yeah, like we're 4 and 5 games into this one, and every team has dropped points somewhere along the line. And just when you think you've seen a really impressive performance, that team will go and lose the following week. Like, for example, Birmingham in 9th beating Southampton in 3rd.
I went to see Southampton first weekend of September. And I was like, this team are nailed on. They're just a step above. They're nailed on to win the Championship. They are so good. They beat Blackburn that day, I think. And then they go, it's just so topsy-turvy, that league, you just can't predict it.
So Blackburn are top with 4 wins and 1 loss. Lewis are currently propping up the table, but there's 5 points between bottom and 7th, while there's then 5 points between 6th and 1st. So I reckon there's still plenty of position swapping to take place in this league, so definitely one to keep an eye on. I mean, that's it. That's right. That's the first full episode of Extra Time with Girls on the Ball.
Whole 2 leagues in 22 minutes.
That was, I mean, I'm not sure we could say we did a whole of the Championship, but we in 20 minutes I fear that might be impossible, and unless I turn up to full speed, in which case no one could understand me. But yeah, we hope you enjoyed our first episode. If this weekend is anything to go by, next weekend's going to be great. We're going to have loads to talk about, so we will see you then.